And my favorite player was Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
My dad's from Chicago. We were huge Bulls fans.
We're going to play the Bulls for the championship. Michael Jordan just has some more help. I'm just as good as him. They look at me like I'm crazy.
I was left speechless. The only thing I knew in that moment was that Jordan was the GOAT. Future generations will never come close to what we were witnessing.
When a young Larry Bird is left speechless, you know you've just seen something the game will never forget. Some players got respect, while others got fear. Michael Jordan got both, every time he stepped on the court. There was something about him from the start. The way he looked at you like he already knew what was coming, and you couldn't stop it. This isn't about stats or rings. It's about how the best players in the world talk about him. It wasn't about admiration, but about impact. He changed how opponents prepared, how coaches schemed, and how the game was played. Not because he asked for it, because he forced it. That's not just praise. That's the truth from the people who know. In this video, we're letting those players speak. The ones who faced him, the ones who tried to stop him. Because they'll all tell you the same thing. Jordan was different. And if you think Bird's first words were powerful, just wait until you hear what he says later in the video. There are games you remember, and then there are players who make you forget it was a game at all. For Shaquille O'Neal, standing across from Michael Jordan wasn't just a matchup. It was something else entirely. Shaq entered the league like a wrecking ball through the front doors of the NBA. A once-in-a-generation blend of power and athleticism, too big to stop, too strong to move, and too confident to care. He dunked on double teams, shattered backboards, and stared down anyone who tried to test him. But when it came to Michael Jordan, even the Diesel had to pause. Because for all the physical dominance Shaq brought to the game, there was no counter for what Jordan brought with him, that eerie sense of inevitability, that unspoken understanding that you weren't just playing against a star. You were up against something greater. Years later, when asked what it was like to share the court with Jordan during his prime, Shaq didn't break down the X's and O's, and he didn't reach for cliches. What he said instead has become one of the most iconic sound bites in any conversation about MJ.
He's at the peak of MJ. What is it like just being on the floor with him, man?
I don't know what God looks like. It's like seeing God.
That's not just a quote. It's a revelation. That's the most dominant big man of his era. A four-time NBA champion, a three-time Finals MVP, the guy who physically overwhelmed legends, describing Michael Jordan in spiritual terms. Because there's no other way to explain what it felt like when Jordan locked in. Jordan didn't have to say a word. His game was the statement, and his presence alone told every player, every fan, and every coach exactly who was in control. When Shaq says it was like seeing God, it's not just about what Jordan did with the ball in his hands. It's about how he made people feel, even the ones who thought they were untouchable. Because that's what greatness really is. Not just dominance, but the ability to make even the most unstoppable players stop, look across the court, and know they were witnessing something that didn't seem possible. If anyone in NBA history made a living off effort, it was Dennis Rodman. Relentless on the glass, fearless on defense, and unapologetically physical, Rodman didn't care who you were or how many scoring titles you had. If you stepped into his space, you were in for a war. He was chaos with purpose, a defender who could throw you off rhythm just by existing near you. But even chaos had its limits. And when it came to Michael Jordan, Rodman had no illusions about who was in control. In a rare moment of calm reflection, stripped of bravado and far from the usual sound bites, Rodman was asked what it was like trying to contain MJ. And instead of talking trash, he gave it to us straight.
It was cool.
You're one of the few guys that can say that, by the way.
It was actually cool, man, because it gave us the opportunity to work harder, because we knew these guys was coming. And once we start playing them and once we got in the playoff with these guys, but it's like, it's hard to keep that guy under 30 points. It was hard, but he was that good, man.
Coming from Rodman, that's as close to a bow as you'll ever get. This is a man who guarded Karl Malone, boxed out Shaq, and played mind games with some of the greatest scorers ever. But Jordan made him feel something different. Not fear, just inevitability. Rodman didn't sugarcoat it. He knew you could bring your best game, your most physical effort, your most dialed-in defense, and Jordan would still find his spots. He'd rise up with that perfect mid-range pull-up, float into a fadeaway, or glide past you with a first step that didn't even look that quick until it was too late. Because guarding Jordan wasn't about stopping him, it was about surviving him. Rodman's respect never came easy. But when he says it was hard just to keep MJ under 30, he's not just praising the skill, he's acknowledging the reality. Jordan was going to get his. The only question was how long you could hold him off before he took the game away. There are certain matchups in basketball that feel like fate. One-on-one moments where greatness meets greatness, where time slows down and the whole world leans in. For Allen Iverson, fearless, unapologetic, and brimming with swagger, facing Michael Jordan wasn't just a test. It was a promise he had made to himself long before he ever stepped foot on an NBA court. Iverson had been dreaming of this moment for years, and when the opportunity finally came, with Jordan lined up in front of him, Iverson didn't blink.
I was telling all my friends and my family that if I ever got a chance, if he ever guarded me, that I was going to try my move on the greatest player to ever play. So I knew I was going to do it. When he got on me, that's why I backed up. I said, oh, here we go. I didn't get nervous. And I was, like you said, just young, you know what I mean, and just confident. So my heart wasn't thumping or nothing like that. I won't, you know what I mean? I did it like I would do it any other time.
That's not arrogance, that's authenticity. Iverson wasn't out there trying to embarrass Jordan, he was trying to prove he belonged. That all the hours on the blacktop, the battles in college, the belief in his own game, it all led to that one moment. The crossover heard around the world. But what makes Iverson's retelling so powerful isn't just the move, it's the mindset. There was no fear, just pure, unfiltered belief. The kind of belief you have when you're young, hungry, and too naive to know you're supposed to be intimidated. He wasn't playing against an idol that night. He was playing basketball. And in that moment, even if just for a split second, he reminded the world that legends can be challenged and the next generation never asks for permission, they take the shot. Chris Webber played the game with poise and power. He knew systems and he understood what made elite players elite. But even he had trouble wrapping his head around what Michael Jordan brought to the table. Because it wasn't just the scoring or the shot making, it was the details. The stuff most players only practice in empty gyms, Jordan did it under the lights, in the middle of a playoff series, against the best in the world. Webber didn't need to hype Jordan, he saw it firsthand. And when he talks about it, you can hear the weight in his words.
Jordan, you know, like the drills that you do every day just to become a better player, and you do them hard. Like, he was playing that way in the game. He was denying, seeing the man in the ball, turning, talking on defense, elbowing guys as they came through the paint. Like, we saw his greatness, and he shut anyone that he was checking down. It was not a game.
That's the part people forget. Jordan didn't just score 30 a night, he defended like his legacy depended on it. He dove into passing lanes and barked on defense. He elbowed cutters just to remind them who they were dealing with. There was no taking possessions off. Every second on the floor, Jordan treated like it was personal. Webber played with killers. He saw legends up close. But Jordan executed the fundamentals with so much intensity that it made the other 9 guys look like they were in warm-ups. When Chris Webber says, "We saw his greatness," it isn't about admiration, it's about recognition. Because if you played against Michael Jordan, even once, you didn't need someone to explain it to you. You felt it. When Magic Johnson talks about basketball, there's a rhythm to it. Like he's still running the break in his mind, eyes scanning the floor, smile just waiting to burst through. He's seen every superstar, played with the best, competed at the highest levels. But when it comes to Michael Jordan, even Magic speaks with a little more weight in his voice. Because Jordan didn't just play the game, he elevated the expectation of what greatness looked like. Magic's words weren't flashy, but they were telling.
You know, when you think about playing with MJ, it's nerve-wracking because he demands excellence. And but just getting him the basketball in the right place and let him do his thing with the tongue out and everything. You know, the tongue way out.
You could almost see the image in his head. Jordan slashing through the lane, tongue out, defenders trailing behind, and the ball already in his hands before the crowd could even react. And for a player like Magic, who built his entire career on making others better, watching Jordan wasn't about flash, it was about precision. The demand for excellence wasn't just a standard MJ set for himself, but one he placed on everyone around him. If you were on the floor with him, you had to be locked in, because if you weren't, he'd let you know. And if you were, He'd make you look like a star. Magic saw that firsthand, not as a rival, but as someone who understood that Jordan had that rare gift, the ability to make the extraordinary feel routine. And when Magic remembers the tongue, the walk, the energy, he's not just recalling a player, he's remembering a force. The one guy who made even his jaw drop and who demanded that everyone, even Hall of Famers, raise their game just to stay in the frame. Before Tony Parker ever won championships in San Antonio, before he became one of the most reliable point guards of his generation, before he ran pick and rolls with Tim Duncan like it was muscle memory, he was just a kid in Europe watching the game from afar. And for him, basketball wasn't just exciting, it was sacred. Because his first true basketball memory, it was seeing Michael Jordan live.
My favorite player was Michael Jordan. My dad's from Chicago. We were huge Bulls fans. And so I remember being 10 years old and being in Monaco. And I went to the game, the Dream Team. They played France for a friendly game before going to Barcelona for Olympics. And I was one of those kids who will go down and go watch it. France lost by 50, but you know.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
And so I was just super excited to see my idol. And that's why I wear the number 9, because of Michael Jordan.
That's not a stat, that's not a scouting report, that's pure legacy. For a 10-year-old kid sitting in the stands, MJ wasn't just a basketball player, he was larger than life. The Dream Team had already become legend, but seeing Jordan in person, that changed something in Parker. He wasn't watching a man shoot hoops, he was watching what greatness looked like in real time. And even after years of his own stardom, after title runs, MVP caliber stretches, and a Hall of Fame resume of his own, Parker doesn't pretend he's above it. He still looks back and points to that moment. Because some idols never shrink, even as you catch up to them. Tony Parker wore number 9 his whole career, not because it looked good on a jersey, but because it reminded him of where it all started. With a wide-eyed kid watching Jordan in Monaco, dreaming of being part of something that magical. Charles Barkley never lacked confidence. He wasn't just a force on the court, he was a force of will. Undersized for his position, overpowered most of the league, and never once backed down from a challenge. So when the 1993 NBA Finals came around and it was Barkley versus Jordan, there was no fear. And from the moment he arrived in Phoenix's locker room, Barkley let it be known he wasn't conceding anything.
Because when I got there that first day, I said, guys, I think I'm the best basketball player in the world. We're going to play the Bulls for the championship. Michael Jordan just has some more help. I'm just as good as him. They look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, what? I says, I think I'm the best basketball player in the world. Y'all gonna find out right now, because we're gonna go out here and start kicking some.
That's vintage Chuck. Honest, unfiltered, and fully committed to believing in himself, even when the odds leaned heavy in the other direction. But what makes this story more than just bravado is what came after. Barkley did play out of his mind that series. Averaged over 27 points, 13 rebounds, nearly 5 assists a game. He went toe-to-toe with MJ and never flinched. And yet, Jordan still won. That's the thing. Barkley wasn't wrong for thinking he could match up. He had to believe it. But what he ran into was something no amount of confidence could overcome. Jordan didn't just meet the challenge, he absorbed it and then dismantled it. When Barkley tells this story now, he doesn't say it with regret. He says it with a kind of admiration. Because deep down, he knew he gave his best shot. If you ever watched Reggie Miller play, you know he wasn't just built for the big moments. He lived for them. The bigger the shot, the louder the crowd, the higher the stakes, the more Reggie wanted the ball in his hands. He didn't fear the spotlight. So when it came to Michael Jordan, the ultimate competitor, Reggie wanted all of it. And while he got his battles, especially those legendary matchups in the late 90s, he was always left wanting more.
I won a few battles.
Man, that's funny.
He always won the wars. He's got 6 of them. Mm-hmm. And we took him 7 games. Mm-hmm. I just wish we'd have had more. I wish I could have gone against him more.
He had a lot
Again, and I don't want people jumping on the internet. I'm not saying we would have beat them. I would.
Just wanted
It
the
probably would
smoke.
have been the same thing.
Just wanted that smoke.
But man, I want to see.
Mm-hmm. Show
I
me.
got confidence. I want to see how I am versus that dude.
There's no bitterness there, just competitive fire. Reggie didn't want to dethrone Jordan for the sake of history. He wanted to test himself, to see how far he could push the greatest player the game had ever seen, and in doing so, maybe elevate his own legend along the way. And even when Jordan came out on top, Reggie never felt slighted. Because the truth is, there's a level of greatness that doesn't need to be defended. It doesn't require excuses. Miller knew he was one of the best to ever do it, but facing Jordan, that was the benchmark. And like every true competitor, he just wanted one more shot. One more chance to stand toe-to-toe with the ghost that haunted everyone's championship dreams. Larry Bird didn't hand out compliments easily. The Hick from French Lick was known for his cold-blooded shooting, his basketball IQ, and his ability to break your will without saying a word. But when it came to Michael Jordan, even Bird had to admit he was watching something entirely new. Bird had seen scorers. But Jordan? Jordan redefined it.
Well, if you remember, they used to isolate on one side and 4 guys go on the other side.
With you, yeah.
But I thought that was bad basketball. A lot of teams were using it. But, when Michael came in, it was different because he was a scorer. He had a scoring mentality. And as he got better, they started getting better players around him. But, it never really, to me, has been the same.
That's not just a quote about play style. That's a subtle acknowledgement from one of the game's greatest minds that Michael Jordan didn't just fit into the NBA, he altered it. Bird watched the league shift in real time, watched defenses tilt toward one man, watched the game evolve to accommodate a scorer who didn't need structure, because he was the structure. Even in retirement, Bird speaks about Jordan with the quiet awe of someone who saw the game bend. He doesn't say it outright, but you can feel it in his voice. Jordan wasn't just playing within the NBA. He was rewriting what was possible inside of it. By the time Carmelo Anthony entered the league, MJ wasn't flying through the air anymore. The dunks were fewer, the speed had tapered, but the mastery? That was still there, and Melo saw it with his own eyes.
I just remember watching him as a basketball player. Damn, he just looked so different. He's not MJ of old. He's not MJ flying through the air, but the game looked so easy to him. He just catches it 2 dribbles, right, shot fake, boom, get to the rack, 1 dribble, has he pull, boom, 20. I'm like, damn, it's like he just picking his spots, and they can't do shit about it.
It wasn't about the explosiveness anymore. It was the control. The way Jordan picked apart defenses like he was bored of making the right decision, and just started making the perfect one instead. Carmelo saw that evolution, from high-flying phenom to cold-blooded technician. And what stuck with him wasn't the flash, but the ease. Jordan didn't need to jump over people. He could walk around them. The pace slowed, the wisdom sharpened, and the result? Still the same. Buckets. Sometimes greatness doesn't speak. It doesn't wave for attention, it just walks in, and everything around it shifts. Wade had already become one of the best shooting guards of his generation. He'd played against legends, won titles, and shared locker rooms with Hall of Famers, but the moment Michael Jordan walked in, Wade didn't need to be told who he was dealing with. He felt it.
The moment
was black.
Was when MJ came in.
When he came in.
I ain't never.
Yeah. We're talking about aura. You're talking about aura.
Let me tell you something, when he walked through.
Just aura, that's it.
Everything changed.
Yeah.
There was no speech, just presence. That shift in the air when someone larger than the moment walks into it. Wade had played in sold-out arenas and finals games, but this was different. MJ's aura wasn't just about legacy or rings. It was something you felt. You didn't have to see him play to know what he was capable of. He didn't need to touch the ball to dominate a room. Just showing up was enough to tilt the energy his way. That's the kind of weight only the truly iconic carry. And Wade, a Hall of Famer himself, could only stand there and feel it like the rest of us, because when MJ enters, the room doesn't just acknowledge it. The room shifts around him. And KG? He co-signed it with his own version of the story, one that hits differently when you hear it coming from one of the most intense players in NBA history. If there's anyone who wasn't supposed to be impressed by anyone, it was Kevin, a relentless competitor. But even KG had to admit, Michael Jordan wasn't normal. He wasn't just a player, he was an atmosphere.
Mike was heat, man. You see how, in the back, Matt was sitting in front of me and I went like this to him. I said, did you feel that? He said, yeah. I said, that's how Mike was, yo. When he was on the court, he felt the way.
He was have to look at it.
Listen, he was a dog. You understand?
It was a feeling. KG didn't need a stat sheet. He needed only a second of eye contact, a few steps in warm-ups, and that was it. You knew exactly who was in charge. Jordan didn't need to try. He just had to show up. And everyone, from rookies to MVPs, adjusted themselves accordingly. It wasn't about a move or a shot or a stat line. It was about the feeling. KG, one of the most emotionally charged players to ever touch the hardwood, described it like a sudden rise in temperature. The whole court just felt different when MJ was on it, like the game was being played under pressure, like the stakes had just gone up, even if it was just warm-ups. KG felt it in his bones. He looked over at his teammate and had to ask, "Did you feel that?" And the answer was yes, every time. Because Jordan didn't blend into the background. He didn't even need to try to stand out. His presence announced itself. And when someone like KG, who was never afraid of anyone, says you made the air feel heavier just by stepping on the court, that's reverence, disguised as respect. There's no debating what Michael Jordan accomplished. 6 championships and 5 MVPs, countless records, but the numbers, as insane as they are, don't even begin to tell the whole story. The truth of MJ's greatness doesn't live in the box score. It lives in the words of the ones who were there. The Hall of Famers who guarded him, the MVPs who studied him, the kids who watched from the stands and became legends in their own right. When Shaq says it felt like seeing God, when Rodman admits there was no stopping him, when Bird, Magic, Wade, KG, all of them talk about MJ like he was more than a player, that's legacy. Jordan didn't just win. He transformed everyone around him. He made veterans question themselves and made rising stars raise their games. And he made even the coldest competitors crack a smile, because deep down, they knew they were sharing the floor with the standard. This wasn't just dominance. It was myth in motion. And even now, decades later, the legends still remember. Because once you've seen Michael Jordan in full flight, you don't forget. You just say that was different.